No, you're very welcome to Tree Talk episode 165. Myself and Matt are back after a week's break, and we have so much to look forward to and look back on. We're going to start with the All-Stars Limerick breaking that record. We have three Limerick sides in Munster action. We have Kilmallock, Mungret, St. Paul's, and Caherline. We'll look back on the Munster football last week where Newcastle got a famous victory. The Monagea ladies football team are in a Munster final this weekend. We'll look back on the under-21s, and there's a Junior B Camogie final. Look forward to, so do stay tuned for all that and more.
The impression again we get out with what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
No, Matt, I won't even ask how you're doing today because we have so much to get through, but I might give you a brief mention. How are you today on this Friday morning, later than usual?
I'm reasonably good in the circumstances in that I'm slightly annoyed, more than slightly annoyed today, Jack, as you'll find out during the podcast. I'm on the warpath today.
Yeah, I think I know what it was. But look, we'll start with Limerick's All-Stars. 12 broke the record. I know you're still not going to be happy about one notable admission, and it's fairly obvious who that is. But we'll go to the team. Owen Murphy, Kilkenny in goals. Then you have Sean Finn, Conor Prunty, Waterford, and Barry Nash. The next eight are all Limerick. That middle third that we dominate so much. Dermot Burns, Declan Hannon, Kyle Hayes, all winning their second award. Burns and Hayes, second year in a row. William O'Donoghue and Dara Donovan get their first awards. About time, a lot of people will say. Then you have last year's Hurler of the Year, gets his second in a row. Keane Lynch gets a third. Keane Lynch is obviously Hurler of the Year elect. We'll find out that tonight. And Tom Morrissey gets his second in a row. Tony Kelly breaks up the Limerick dominance for a brief period. And then Shane Flanagan and Peter Casey got their first awards as well. We won't start with the obvious omission because I know you're going to get there. But how deserving of Limerick are those 12? And it could have easily been 15 as well.
Well, Jack, you included were laughing at me when we had this discussion a number of weeks ago. Know how many All-Stars should Limerick get? And I said 15. And yeah. I was deadly serious about it because the three that are omitted, you can make compelling cases for all three. Absolutely compelling cases. You know where I'm going to start. That there is nobody will tell me, Jack, that Nicky Quaid was not the best goalkeeper in 2021. I have no doubt whatsoever about it. None whatsoever. And like, is it that his contribution is again gone under the radar, or is it there's politics and shenanigans going on with this selection process? I don't know, but I'm seeding, Jack, that Nicky Quaid is not getting his second All-Star. Yeah. Absolutely, he had an absolutely fantastic year, and like, you know, Jack, I just don't get it. I just don't get what the process is, and you know, all this thing about the number that counties get, and we're all hung up on this, and Cork are very hung up at the moment because I was talking to somebody close to the scene there yesterday for a considerable amount of time, and they're very, very annoyed that having got to the All-Ireland final, that they didn't get an All-Star or two. You know, they got to the All-Ireland final and they were beaten out the gate. Let's call a spade, and they were beaten in 15 positions. You know. Yeah. By a super team, and like I thought and this marking the 50th year of it, it was time to be magnanimous. We had a super team, probably the best team of the generation, and they should have gone in block.
Yeah, I think the Nicky Quaid thing is, and we're talking off air, like in 2018, it was between Owen Murphy and Nicky Quaid. I thought Owen Murphy was better in 18 than he was this year, and Nicky Quaid was probably as good as he was. I thought it was fair to give it to Owen Murphy in 18, but I think, as you said, Nicky Quaid was definitely deserving. But I do think 12 is an awful lot. I think 13, even though they all deserved it, I think 13 would have been an outrageous amount of All-Stars to give, even though you could make that case that Dan Morrissey was far superior than Conor Prunty. I think it just goes against him. He didn't start against Cork and Tip. As fullbacks go, Dan Morrissey is the best in the country, and he is by a mile. Tony Kelly, I think if you were going to give it to a forward outside Limerick, I think Jack O'Connor from Cork probably, or Pat Horgan, had a better case than Tony Kelly. That's my opinion on it. I think Tony probably only had 4 games, and they were going to the quarter final again. Patrick Horgan and Jack O'Connor got to an All-Ireland final. Now, could have been Aaron Gillans as well. So you could make the case for the 3 Limerick boys. But I think, Nicky Quaid is definitely the obvious omission. I think it comes down to the fact that Limerick had got so many out the field that they just didn't want to give Limerick 13, which you can understand the reason and why, but it probably isn't very fair. But moving on from that, just in front of
No, don't. I have a point to make about it, Jack. About this process.
Go on.
There's 12 Limerick players, and they're picked in their positions, the positions that they occupied for Limerick. Now, are we picking the best players in their positions in the championship, or are we picking the best 15 players that were in the championship? Because there is a difference. And here's where the difference comes in. You mean to tell me that Aaron Gillane isn't a better corner forward than Tony Kelly?
Yeah, but it comes down
Tony Kelly does. So what are they doing? They're kicking out Aaron Gillane and they're accommodating Tony Kelly. Like Tony Kelly should be contesting with Willem O'Donoghue and Darragh O'Donovan. Yeah. You know, and if he wasn't good enough to get it there, leave the corner forwards to those that played at corner forward. You're right there about Jack O'Connor, although he had a very disappointing All-Ireland final.
Yeah, but in the grand scheme of things,
they're playing Tony Kelly in a position I don't think I ever saw him playing right corner forward.
He doesn't play midfield either, though. He plays with 9 on his back, but he kind of has a free roll. I can see where you're coming from, but I can also see why they have a player like Tony Kelly put in there. Now, I personally wouldn't have put him in. I would have definitely had Patrick Horgan and Jack O'Connor, who played in the inside forward line all throughout the year.
I wouldn't. I disagree with you there on that. They were seriously beaten in the All-Ireland final. They were found out, Jack.
I know they were, but like when you're coming,
and there's no greater fan. There's no greater fan of Tony Kelly than I am. Absolutely, I think he's an absolutely superb hurler. Absolutely, possibly if you're talking about in the country, only second to Cian Lynch.
Yeah,
but I don't get it, and I don't get the exclusion of Dan Morrissey. And I'm not being green-eyed or green misty-eyed today or any of that sort of thing. But like a bit of pragmatism has to come into it. Like if you were going for a fullback, Conor Prunty or Dan Morrissey.
Yeah, but it comes down to the season ahead. Now I think Dan did have a better season, but
well, Dan was suffering from injury in the early part of the season. He had difficulty in shaking off injury, and like that can happen to any player. But by God, when he came on in the Munster final in a difficult situation, Dan hit the ground running.
Yeah,
starred in the Munster final, starred in the All-Ireland semi-final, starred in the All-Ireland final.
Oh yeah,
what more questions can you ask?
I know when Dan Morrissey's on the field, he cleans up. He'll destroy anyone that comes in his way. But I can see it from both sides. But look, Nicky Quaid, Dan Morrissey, Aaron Gillane, Morrissey and Gillane are double All-Stars. Nicky Quaid only has 1. He should have probably 3 at this stage. But that's beside the point. I think it was very important that for Barry Nash, William O'Donoghue, Darragh O'Donovan, Seamus Flanagan and Peter Casey, that they got it first. That whatever happens in their career from now, they'll finish with at least 3 All-Irelands, but they'll have that All-Star as that individual recognition. And I suppose specifically for the 2 lads in midfield, Will Donoghue last year was robbed. Like, there's no two ways about it.
Yeah,
And
delighted to see Will Donoghue getting his All-Star. Like, definitely, when we were anticipating last year, I didn't include William O'Donoghue in the All-Stars because I was second guessing what they would do in the selection process. But like, we did make it clear that in our view that he was certainly worthy of an All-Star. Delighted for Darragh O'Donovan because the pre-announcement perception was that he was going to be a Limerick player that would miss out, which I thought would have been extremely harsh, because will we ever forget, Jack, the performance that Darragh O'Donovan put in the All-Ireland semi-final against Waterford?
incredible.
Absolutely, just simply incredible. But Darragh O'Donovan is one of those players, Jack, that his contribution game on game very, very often goes unnoticed.
As does William O'Donoghue.
As does William O'Donoghue. But these guys have been totally consistent. So I'm absolutely delighted for the two of them. Delighted for Barry Nash. But what a transition for Barry Nash. From a free-scoring minor corner forward, wing forward, to an all-star cornerback.
Yeah,
it gives you a sense of the magnitude of the job that John Kiley and his management team have done in rearranging their forces and in finding their best positions for these lads. And you must remember, Jack, in 2020, Barry Nash must have been very, very close to an All-Star as well.
I was just about to say it could have been his second All-Star at cornerback.
So I'm absolutely delighted. I'm only concentrating on the new players now because I have Seamus Flanagan. Delighted to see him getting his first All-Star. Like, he was on fire. Yeah. Absolutely on fire throughout the campaign, and we possibly got an insight into the importance of Seamus Flanagan to the whole entire Limerick system, because when in 2018 he was outstanding. He suffered a dip of form and was in and out in 2019. He's back in 2020, 2021, and it's it's more than a coincidence that when he's around we win the All-Ireland, So it gives you a sense of the pivotal role he plays. As for Peter Casey, absolutely thrilled. Nothing more than Peter Casey deserves, and we wish him the best and the speediest of recoveries with his injury at the moment. And this is some consolation, because he was heading in the All-Ireland final for an absolutely could be only described, Jack, as an extraordinary performance. Yeah. Had he stayed on for the full 70 minutes, what he had done while he was on the pitch was just simply phenomenal, and absolutely delighted for Peter Casey to get his All-Star.
Yeah, it might help with the rehab a small bit, just that little bit of individual recognition. And I suppose then one man that there's three men that we'll have to pick out, because obviously they were tonight. The hurler of the year, we're looking at the hurler of the year one way or another on that page. Kyle Hayes or Sean Finn. Now, I think we agreed unanimously that it is going to be Cian Lynch. There's no two ways about that. And I think we talked enough about Cian in the past. And Kyle Hayes is right up there and was incredible all year. But for Sean Finn, for a cornerback first to be nominated for hurler of the year, says an awful lot about the player. But 4 in a row, is the most consistent hurler in Ireland. He's just the best cornerback that I've ever seen. He's 4 in a row, doesn't show any signs of stopping. I saw a video they did during the week. He does everything at his leisure. It's kind of like Virgil van Dijk in soccer, for anyone that watches. Never seems to be kind of put to the pin of their collar. Just is so aware of the game, good at reading the game. They never have to push themselves. Like Sean Finn, have you ever seen a cornerback like him?
I haven't, Jack. No. And I've been watching him up along through underage with Bruff and through schools and all that sort of thing, and absolutely just a phenomenal player, a guy with a fantastic attitude to the game. And as you said, Jack, I think you really nailed it there. His reading of the game is absolutely incredible. It gives him a head start, and of course, cool as a cucumber, like, and he's coolness personified, which you really need back there. And he has an absolute. He seems to have an innate appreciation of what is happening around him, but also of what might happen or what may happen. So he's the complete cornerback. Now, Jackie Gerald was on record in 2020 on the Sunday game of saying that Sean Finn was the best defender in the country now, as distinct from the best cornerback, the best defender in the country. And I find it very, very hard to disagree with that, because, and I'm talking about defender now, Jack, because pound for pound, and we have some fantastic defenders. There's 5 of them there, all-stars out of 6, and there should be 6. But Sean Finn is the complete defender. He's the complete cornerback first, but he's the complete defender, I think.
Yeah, and if there wasn't a certain Keane Lynch floating around, there's a really strong case to be made that Sean Finn is the best out-and-out hurler in the country. But we've spent 16 minutes talking about the All-Stars, Matt, there, so we might move on. But before we go, we've a comment in here from the Unk saying that Sean Finn should be Hurler of the Year. Now, I don't know if he wants his, whoever he is, to be revealed, but I know the Unk will be talking out for Mungret this weekend, and we'll be talking about that game in a minute. Before we go to Mungret, we'll start with the senior championship, and we have the clash in Kilmallock and Middleton this Sunday in the two Skellig grounds at 1:15 in the Munster Senior Club Hurling Championship. It's been a long time waiting to see Kilmallock since they won the county final against Patrickswell. An awful long break, Matt. Middleton will be waiting, I think, is it 3 weeks, but for Kilmallock it's about 7. I suppose the first 5-10 minutes will tell a lot in this game.
It will. Kilmallock are bound to show a certain amount of rustiness in the early stages. It's been a very, very long break, but Kilmallock are adaptable, as we saw particularly during the concluding stages of the Limerick Championship. Now it's going to be a very, very tough assignment against Middleton. It's not the first time that they met in the Munster Championship. They met, I think it was in 1991. They drew in Kilmallock, and in the first day, and the perception was that Kilmallock had lost that chance, but lo and behold, they went back to Middleton and won by a point, and then went on and won the Munster Championship. So there might be an omen there. I'm not saying that I hope that I'm saying it will be a draw or anything on Sunday, but certainly if Kilmallock can get up to the pace of the game early, now Middleton are going to have this advantage. And like they have Ben O'Connor on board as coach, who has done a fantastic job there, and who will be very, very familiar with Kilmallock because of his proximity there in Newtown Shandrum. And I can expect that Middleton are going to come out all guns blazing, and that they will try and capitalise early on in any ring rustiness that may be in Kilmallock.
Yeah, like Kilmallock, though, you would have said if they can continue the form. Now, again, the break will say so much, but they started so slowly in the Limerick Championship, like they were beaten by Napier, scraped over the line against Ballybrown. I don't know how many times we alluded to that, but as the championship went on, they got better and better and better, and they were looking like Munster champions when we saw them against Patrickswell. They
certainly were, and they were the Middleton game to come up in 2 weeks after that, or even 3 weeks after that. That'd certainly be a spring in Kilmallock steps. But the one caveat that I have, and the one fear that I have, is the 6-7 week lapse. It's a lot of time to fill, and especially when your opponents are involved in good competitive championship games. Now, having said that, like Middleton, they are coming to the Gaelic grounds on Sunday, Jack, with rich pedigree. You know, like they didn't win the Cork Championship the easy way. Like they had to beat champions Blackrock in the semi-final, and they had to beat the Rovers in the county final. So, and any team that comes having beaten two of the giants, Blackrock and Glen Rovers, in the concluding stages of the championship, they're a team to be respected now. They have a lot of good young players. I suppose Conor Lehane would be their standout player, and a lot obviously revolves around him because despite his departure from the Cork panel last year, he was certainly outstanding in the county final win over Glen Rovers. And you have young players then like Tommy O'Connell and Sam Quirk, who were involved with the Cork under-20s. And like they have a good sprinkling of very, very good players. And what I'm hearing is that they're an extremely well coached side. And I honestly think that the opening quarter of this game up till the first water break will be crucial. It will give us a sense of how Kilmallock have managed the long break, and because I can see Middleton setting out to capitalise on that.
Yeah, they definitely will. I suppose when you look at the Kilmallock side, they're probably the perfect blend of experience and youth, and then kind of like real younger players like Graham McKay, Barry Hennessy, the O'Loughlin's, even Robbie Hanley was very young at the time, but they've all been around since 2014 when they won the Munster. But then you've like Oisin O'Reilly, Micheál Hoolan, are now 24, 25, but it was the first Munster title for them, and then younger again, Kieran O'Connor, Liam English. Like there's like a real age difference between the team. So like the older lads will have that experience, the younger lads will have no fear, and then the Midland guys like Oisin O'Reilly and Micheál Hoolan are in the form of their lives.
Absolutely, and you know, they have. You're right. Kilmallock have so many players that have been there before. You know, the likes of the Gavin O'Mahony's, the Paddy O'Brien's, the O'Loughlin's, Kevin O'Donnell, Graham Mulcahy, Barry Hennessy, Aaron Costello. They've all Munster medals in their locker, Munster club medals to go beside their Munster. You know, some of them have Munster Championship medals, obviously, as well. And then you have the like of Oisin O'Reilly and Micheál Hoolan, as you say, who are thundering through. Not coming through, but thundering through. I suppose Oisin O'Reilly is thundering back to his best form. And you have Mike Houlihan and the Micheál Houlihan in the form of his life. Now you've Kieran O'Connor, who could possibly come up against directly against Conor Lehane, which would be a very, very interesting matchup. And Liam English, certainly the young players that have come in this year have bedded in really, really well. And not to forget Dan Joy, an All-Ireland winner there as well, you know. It's a very, very strong Kilmallock team, but the one doubt I have about it, and you're probably going to ask me in a minute, how do I think Kilmallock will win, and I'll tell you now that I do. It's not going to be easy for Kilmallock.
No, it definitely won't be easy. And anytime you play a Cork champions in hurling or football for that regard, it's never going to be easy. But I'll agree with you there. I think probably it'll be fair to say Middleton will probably go into the first water break with a lead of some sort. But as long as Kilmallock can restrict that lead to maybe a couple of points, or even if they can go in to the first quarter with a lead, you'd fancy them from there. But I think Middleton will have to target the start just by virtue of that break. But we're both in agreement that we think it'll be Kilmallock contesting the Munster final. Yeah,
I'm going for Kilmallock, Jack.
Yeah, that final, well, the Munster finals will be on the 8th and 9th of January, probably the Sunday for the senior final. But another team that will be looking to get to that final is Mungret St. Paul's. They take on Corsia Rovers on Saturday, 24 hours before Kilmallock take to the pitch. We saw Mungret in the Premier Intermediate final Limerick, and it was probably the most comprehensive display we've seen in that championship since it began in 2014. they've been knocking on the door for a long time, so they will be desperate to leave their mark on Munster. But they play, again, a formidable outfit in Corsi Rovers.
Absolutely a formidable outfit in Corsi Rovers, but you're right. Mungret St. Paul's really hit their best form in the concluding stages of the championship. I saw their semi-final win over Glenroe, my own Glenroe, and they were hugely comprehensive and impressive winners that day, and they replicated it in the county final. So they're in a good space. They're a young team with a couple of experienced heads like Pa Begley and them in the squad. They're well prepared, but they're up against a tough Cork intermediate champions. Year on year are very, very formidable. And Corsi Rovers, of course, Jack, are from the Ballinspittle area of Cork, and Ballinspittle, of course, made famous by the moving statues back in the day. So they were impressive winners of the Cork Championship. It's going to be a big ask for Mungret, but at home in the Gaelic grounds, with which they're very, very familiar, I fancy that they're going to do well. And the one doubt that I would have about Mungret is the same doubt as I have about Kilmallock. The break, the long break. And I think we'll probably touch on it later in the podcast about the schedule of championships and things like that. And Limerick have done a great job, and I reiterate it again for anyone that's not still bored of me saying it. They've done a great job in running their championships, in a condensed situation. But there might be a slightly, I'm hearing vibes around the county of a slight bit of downside to it. And we might, as I said, we may touch later on the podcast in it. But Mungret St. Paul's will suffer probably, again, Jack, and I suppose being repetitive, it will all come down to the first probably 15 minutes, and it will be absolutely imperative that Mungret get a good start, or that they prevent Corsi Rovers from getting a very, very good start.
Yeah, obviously
why are we saying this at this time of the year? We're saying it because it's not an even playing field. The Limerick Championships are over with 6 or 7 weeks. The Cork Championships are just over. That's why.
Yeah, but I mean that's nothing to do with Corsi Rovers or Mungret St. Paul's. No. They just go into their competitions. I suppose Corsi Rovers obviously beat Castleisland, so would have been heavy favourites in the final, and Castleisland lost last year's final to Blarney, so they are bringing huge pedigree. But we've seen Mungret recently in the 21s championship get to the semi-final. I was at their semi-final against the Piershig, and they were 1-9-6 ahead, and they didn't score in the last 40 minutes or so in bad conditions. But they're a really youthful kind of side, and that innocence of youth should do well in Munster. They'll be able to go out and just express themselves and not really worry, whereas the older lads in the team will probably be thinking this could be a last shot at Munster, we'll say.
Yeah, probably a first and a last shot for them, because it's Mungret's first sortie into Munster, isn't it, in hurling?
They won the junior in 2006. I'd imagine they were in Munster that year, but I don't know.
Probably.
How that went. For anyone, I think maybe Barry O'Grady's side were probably on that team, but for everyone else, it'd be a first venture into Munster, yeah.
Yeah, first venture really into Munster. So, there won't be a fear factor, because certainly in the concluding stages of the Limerick Championship, they certainly didn't play with fear. They will see it as a new challenge. And I have no doubt that their management team will have them properly primed. Liam Cronin has been around a long, long time at different levels of the game, and will have them properly primed. And I'm hopeful, Jack, that Mungret will get a result.
Yeah, I'd be confident that Mungret will have enough. I think just their playing style. I was talking to Liam Cronin during the week, and he said they were ready to knuckle down straight away after the celebrations or whatever. And there's some nice young hurlers now. They do have a couple of injuries, which will set them back. But I think they have the squad depth to be dealing with injuries and stuff. And I'd fancy Limerick to make it 2 from 2 in the Gaelic grounds anyway this weekend. But of course we have another game, not in the Gaelic grounds. Caherline are on the road to Kildare, so to play Ballygiblin, a team you know a lot about. And we kind of have a Mungret there. It's their first venture into Munster in 15 years. And for Caherline, it's first time in Munster for 14 years. But the star man remains the same. Andrew Brennan was a star for Caherline in their final, and he will be again. But for Caherline, the RSI building, it's kind of an area that's getting more and more populated every year. This is the big chance for them. Even talking to Andrew after the county final, there was regrets there from 07, and they can banish some of them demons this Sunday.
Yeah, it is. It certainly is, and Caherline may not have the same problem that Kilmallock and Mungret. St. Paul said in that they hadn't the same length of layoff, albeit maybe a couple of weeks less, but it'll be terribly important. But Jack, make no mistake about it, they're again up against a very, very formidable side in Ballygiblin. Ballygiblin, for anybody that doesn't know, is the sister club it's the Hurling sister club of Mitchelstown footballers, which would be very close to me here. And I would know the Ballygiblin club down through the years, and they won the Cork Championship for the very first time. Now they were outsiders going into the Cork final against Drumtariff, but they dug out a very, very good win. For any of us that were in Cork this year for the Munster under 20 final, we'll recall that Dara Flynn scored 10 points for Cork. He's their main man. He's their key man now. They also had Mark Keane on board. And who is Mark Keane? Mark Keane is the man that scored the late winning goal for Cork in the Munster Senior Football Championship against Kerry in 2020, and famously propelled himself to national stardom. But he has returned. As you know, he was only back then from AFL at that stage, but he has since returned to AFL. Although I think he may be due to come back if they qualify for the final. Now the game is on in Kildare, which is an absolutely fine venue, lovely venue. It's just down the road from us here, and I think Caherline are up against it. If I'm honest, Jack, they're up against it for a couple of reasons. In that the Junior A Championship in Cork tends and has been reflected over the last few years to being that nice bit stronger than Limerick. And, for that reason, I think that Caherline are up against it. But that is to discount the spirit of Caherline, which has been absolutely phenomenal. Like, Damien Gillan has done an absolutely fantastic job in Caherline, because, like, at the start of the year, Jack, when we were talking about potential winners of the Junior A Championship, I think Caherline featured in very few people's thoughts as being potential winners. But here they are, county champions. You can't argue with it. They did it the hard way. They beat a very, very, very fancied Ballybrown team in the semi-final, a quarter-final. They went on and beat Pats, again very, very fancied in the semi-final, and then. You'd have to say that they had a comprehensive win over St. Kieran's in the county final. So, like, Caherline are in a good place, and they go to Kildare in a good place. Now, but it's going to be a huge challenge. Yeah,
they're probably the biggest outsiders of the Limerick side, if that's fair to say. But Caherline have proved throughout the year, and you went through their year there, they do enjoy going in as underdogs, and very often they prove the doubters wrong. So there could be more of the same this weekend. But for all the Limerick teams,
well, they love proving me wrong all year, because in the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and finals, I predicted against them, and they were not slow in telling me to keep predicting against them.
Yeah, so you might go for Ballygiblin. You're near enough neighbours.
Yeah, I'm going for Ballygiblin.
And for I'll go for Caherline just to go against Slide and to go for Limerick side. But for the three Limerick teams, obviously when you get to Munster, like you really want to win it. But it is bonus territory in a sense that winning your county first and foremost every year is the goal, and Munster is a bonus. But when you're only 2 steps away from Munster title, you want to give it your all. Talking about teams steps away from a Munster final, Matt, moving on from the hurling, we have a team that are 1 step away from winning a Munster title, and that is Monagea ladies football team. And it'd be an incredible achievement for Monagea to win. They play Castleisland Desmonds in the ladies football intermediate final this Saturday in Mallow at 3:30. And before we talk about that game and its own merits, and I heard a lot of narrative about Loughmore Castellini winning a Tipperary double and how incredible it was. And I'm not taking anything away from Loughmore; it was incredible. But for 14 of that Monagea ladies football side, they did the exact same thing. They've been an incredible role. They beat Valley Rovers in the semi-final. They beat Ballanders in Limerick, then they beat Valley Rovers in Munster. In the meantime, they were winning Camogie with Newcastle West and beating Kilmallock in the final. Such an incredibly talented bunch of girls around the Monagea Newcastle West area.
Absolutely fantastic, and absolutely delighted for him. And you're right, it was an incredible performance to beat the Cork champions and go to Cork into their own backyard and beat them. And it's nothing more than this group of girls. Jack, they're simply phenomenal. They're simply phenomenal. Like we saw their performances on successive weeks in the Gaelic grounds. First of all, with Monagea, as you said, in the victory over Ballylanders. When in fairness, they had to dig very deep to get the get the win, and then to come back the following Sunday with almost 10 of them again involved with Newcastle West Camogie. Like, it's just an incredible, absolutely an incredible odyssey by those girls, and I think they will go to Mallow full of confidence, and rightly so, because they have the pedigree to show it. They have the record in 2021 to show it. Like in ladies football, Jack, there is no easy Cork team to beat at any level, be it intercounty or be it club. And their win over Valley Rovers was absolutely phenomenal. Now, Valley Rovers have a couple of the Cork senior teams and senior team in their ranks, in that they have the Kiley twins were in their side, and to come out of Valley Rovers. Valley Rovers is down in Inishannon. On the way to West Cork, it's the local club there, Valley Rovers. It would be the home club of a former president of the GAA, Con Murphy, was a Valley Rovers man, and they're based in Inishannon. But the Kiley sisters would have been regulars with Aoife Fitzgerald's Cork team for the last 4 or 5 years, and I've no doubt will probably be in Shane Ronayne's mind again for the coming year. But that gives you an idea of the scale of what Monagea have achieved to get there. Now, I know very little about Castleisland, I have to say, but if there's a football team coming out of Kerry, be they male or female, they've got to be respected, Jack.
Yeah, they do. And I was talking to Yvonne Lee yesterday, and I'll just drop a small clip of her talking, but she was definitely not bigging up the challenge they have, but she was saying how difficult the game is going to be. I'll just draw it.
Between Kerry and Cork, like, the standards of football are very, very high, like, and we're a senior team playing intermediate, but when we're up against each other, there is no difference at all. Like, we actually played Castleisland earlier on in the year in a challenge match, and they were missing, I think, a few girls, and they were still so strong. And I know that the weekend is going to be a really, really tough game. I'm just hoping that we'll be able to put in a performance that will hopefully might get us over the line. But we have a huge challenge up against us, without a doubt.
She's saying there that they played already, and I suppose I was talking to her afterwards. She said it was kind of an advantage to both sides, I suppose, that played each other. But I think it's a general team at this time of year, Matt. The pitches are so heavy that for Monagea, a team that's been on the road now And for a lot of the girls, the likes of Grace and Yvonne, Karen O'Leary, and I suppose Deborah Murphy and them that was playing inter-county, like they've been on the go since probably March or April, that the heavy field is just another added, I suppose, energy sapper for a team like that. But Monagea have shown as well that they can be underdogs and come out with a win. So you'll be hopeful.
Absolutely, more than hopeful, Jackie. I think they have a really, really good chance because, we spoke about it at the outset of this segment, like about the spirit that we have seen and the commitment that we have seen from this phenomenal group of girls, and it's not going to be easy, Jack, but it can be done.
Yeah, it can be done, and you'd be foolish to back against them. And we didn't make that mistake with Monagea throughout the year. We did back them a lot of the way, and they were very comprehensive in that semi-final. They probably dug it out in the final against Ballylanders and against Valley Rovers. It was more the same, but if the pitch is right, they've shown how good of a football team they are. But they play Castleisland.
Absolutely, they're an excellent football team. Excellent football team, and like Monagea are not making up numbers, Jack.
No, I'm just saying that they can do it either way. So if, by some chance there is a nice field that isn't heavy, that they can play both ways. But if it needs to be dug out, they can do that as well. So the best of luck to Monagea in the Munster Intermediate Ladies Football Final this Saturday in Mallow at 3:30. I suppose there's probably something in the water around that part of West Limerick because Newcastle West got Limerick's first win in 13 long years, Matt, in the Munster Championship. They beat the Nire 8-6 in Newcastle last weekend. It was far, far from a classic. I was on the field afterwards. It was very soft, and that's no disrespect to Newcastle. Every field this time of year is soft, but the main thing was getting the win, and they did just that.
Yeah, and then the prevailing conditions were appalling, Jack. Sure, and I suppose you run the risk of that at this time of the year. But like it's certainly a monkey off Limerick clubs' backs. You and I, among others, were talking with Jimmy Lee and Ian Corbett only last night, but I got a sense, and you recall I put it to Ian Corbett, that a sense after the winning the county championship, and spoke with a number of players on pitch side afterwards, and whilst they were delighted to obviously win the Munster championship or the Limerick championship, they just saw it as a step on the journey because there has been a sense around Newcastle West football, and I have detected it very, very clearly over the last couple of years, particularly last year and this year, that there was a sense of unfinished business with the Munster Championship. Because I remember I was in commentary actually on it in 2015, when they went to Clonmel and did everything but beat Clonmel Commercials on the day. It took a late rally from, I think they were about 6 points up going into the concluding stages. It took a late rally from the Commercials to knock them out. Commercials went on and won the Munster Championship. Like they went to Mallow last year to take on Nire Rangers, who are the competition specialists, not only Munster, but All Ireland clubs specialists up there with Crossmaglen, ahead of Crossmaglen, actually. And like they again, they were beaten last year in many ways in controversial circumstances. Like Nire Rangers went on to win the Munster Championship. So that has been a sense among the players anyway, that I detected anyway, that they really, really wanted to have a go at Munster, and celebrations for winning the Limerick Championship were going to be short-term. The focus was going to turn very, very quickly. Very often when you talk to players after winning a county final, they're caught up in the euphoria of winning the county championship, and sometimes when you mention Munster to them, they switch off. But certainly not. I honestly thought that Newcastle West just saw winning the county final this year as a step in that journey. Now they had to do it, and the one thing that disappoints me is, but they've just got over the first hump of it anyway, is the long break again, Jack. And I don't want to be harping on it today, but it has to be said because it is a disadvantage. And like they had a 6-week break, whilst the Nire just had a 2-week break. So and if you recall last Saturday, Jack, there were certainly signs of rustiness in the early stages with Newcastle West. Because it was certainly the Nire that started the brighter and adapted to the conditions quicker. But once Newcastle West got that out of their system and got their some sort of rhythm going, and I say some sort of rhythm because to get any rhythm going on a day like last Saturday was a miracle. The conditions were so poor, and I think they comfortably won it. Now, it was 8 points to 6. It was the type of score that you would expect and the type of day that it was, and it was a dig it out game, and they dug it out, and let's hope that will go some way towards recapturing the type of form that they showed in the concluding stages of the Limerick Senior Football Championship, because we've discussed it ad nauseum here in this podcast about the Limerick Football Championship, and particularly Newcastle West, and Jimmy Lee admitted it last night that they were lucky to get over the line against Galway, which they were damn lucky to do so. But once Father Casey's came on the horizon in the second game, there was certainly a new focus in Newcastle West, and from there, their championship challenge and their successful championship campaign really took off, because I suppose there's nothing better to focus a team than your arch rivals and your great rivals coming down the tracks, and that was the day that I think that the Newcastle West challenge took off, and measurably improved game on game. I saw the quarter-final, Jack, which were not entirely dissimilar to last Sunday. The conditions were absolutely atrocious in McNeville Park. The prevailing conditions. Now let's differentiate between the conditions of the pitches and the prevailing conditions. That has to be said now, and it has to be said last Sunday that the Newcastle West pitch held up very, very well, but it was the atrocious prevailing conditions of wind and rain. That day in McNeville Park against Caherline, it was dire, absolutely dire. And I was hugely impressed with the performance that Newcastle West put on that day. And like, if you like, Jack, this kind of bad weather seems to have dogged Newcastle West, because the conditions last Sunday weren't dissimilar either to the county final. Like, it wasn't played in ideal conditions, So yes. What do we do? What do we do when they go to Tralee next weekend? Hope for wind and rain?
Maybe. I think I don't know if it's from play with Ballysteen, but there's certain teams who play in that senior football championship, and you just think that bad weather follows them. Now it could be coincidence that usually championships played later on in the year, but there are some teams that you just think, oh, we're playing X, Y, and Z. It's going to be rain. It's going to be miserable as such. I don't know if Newcastle are one of those teams, but they seem to have thrived in the rain this year. And as you said about the pitch in Newcastle, it's one of the best fields in Limerick. It was just
absolutely consistent
rain. And we have a storm to deal with. The likes of Kilmallock, Mungret and Caherline will have had the storm during the week, which will definitely disrupt preparations first and foremost. But the pitches, you'd imagine, are Gaelic grounds is the pitch you want to play in. Lucky enough, Mungret and Kilmallock are there, but Caherline will be in Kildallery, so we'll see how that is. But for Newcastle, just getting that win would have been huge. You mentioned Clonmel and Nemo, and just to get so close, and for players like Ian Corbett and them that have been there for so long, just to get that win, there probably is a weight off their shoulders going in to Austin Stacks. And we'll talk about that game more next week, of course, Matt, because we'll be leading into it.
But if I could get back for a second, not cutting across you, Jack, about the win over the Nire, when we were reflecting here after the county final on who we thought the standout players of the championship were, I certainly felt that Cian Sheehan was the standout player in the Limerick Championship this year, and you must remember that Newcastle West defeated the Nire without Cian Sheehan.
Yeah,
he was out injured, but hopefully the prognosis is good, and that he will be back on board for the game against Austin Stacks. But also, Seamus Hurley sustained a very, very serious injury there in the game against the Nire. Now, Jimmy Lee has confirmed that that he's coming along well, but we would like to send our good wishes to Seamus Hurley for a very, very speedy recovery, and he certainly will be missed in Newcastle West's challenge for Munster honours.
Yeah, I was just about to make that point about winning without Cian Sheehan, and obviously sending our best wishes to Seamus. And he actually injured himself in tackling, and it just like he's that sort of player. He goes for everything. Like, he's a very physical kind of player, and it's just very unfortunate. So we send our best wishes to Seamus. But as you said, Jimmy gave a positive update on him. His season is over, but sure, look, at the end of the day, he's making a recovery, and that's all that matters.
That's what's paramount, Jack.
We'll talk in depth about the Austin Stacks and Newcastle West next weekend. But I asked Jimmy last week, kind of in passing, but for you, a throw in, who's going to win? Is it going to be Kieran Donaghy or Michael Mahan? Who would you be betting for?
Mac and Kieran Donaghy.
Or just from the throw-in, because I'd imagine we'll see the two big men in from the throw-in. Who wins that primary possession, first of all?
I don't know. I can win.
No, you can't win. I would say Kieran Donaghy probably has a bigger leap, but Michael McMahon is a stronger man. But
he's a stronger man, yeah.
It's a fascinating contest, but it's only...
Can I say Mac won before wanting?
No, it's only a tiny little subplot in the grand scheme of things, but we'll talk in depth about that next weekend. We obviously have a Junior B Camogie final this weekend, and I can't say I know too much about it, Matt, but it's St. Ailbe's versus Doon. You know a little bit more about it than me. Again, to be playing Camogie this time of year, conditions will play their part, and we've said it so many times, but there's one lady in particular in St. Ailbe's that's got a lot of attention, and you might touch on her there. She got the crucial goal in the Junior B football final. She'll be looking to do the same in the Camogie.
She will, and we're talking about 62-year-old Pauline McCarthy, and I'm sure she won't mind me mentioning her age. It has been mentioned often enough now, and she's been the subject of a lot of limelight. But what all this is overshadowing, Jack, is that she got a goal for the ages. It was a cracking goal. Now, I put it to her after, that it was the best goal she scored, which she disagreed with me. She said she had a good few better. I would love to have seen him now. It was absolutely fantastic. But she's an absolutely phenomenal sports person. So just imagine it, Jack, at 62 years of age. She's done it all. Like, Pauline McCarthy lined out with Limerick in the 1980 All-Ireland final. 1980 All-Ireland senior final. The only time that Limerick got to a final and were beaten by Cork after a replay. Pauline McCarthy has two, listen to this, Jack, two All-Ireland senior clubs ladies football medals. Senior ladies football medals in 78 and 79 with Newtown Shandrum. I didn't ever think there was a football in Newtown Shandrum.
No, and you playing against Cork in an All-Ireland final the year after. It is a fact. And she was a double All-Ireland senior clubs medal winner in 78 because she won the football with Newtown Shandrum and she won the Camogie with Ballygran. So, like that's not today or yesterday, but to think that she is still around and that she's performing at the level that she's performing. Now, after the game against Broadford, which Ailbe's won in the junior football, she did openly profess that Camogie was her first love.
So, what we have here now is two emerging teams in the final. There is a narrative going around, which I've heard very, very often in the course of the last 2 months or so, that Doon should not be in Junior B, that they were too good for it. Which to me is a nonsense, because you know, you have to win your grades up along. Now they have an exceptionally good team, and they would probably be strong favourites to go up. And it's nice to see the ladies in Doon coming along now in tandem with the men folk. And I know you're going to refer to Doon in a few minutes in the context of the recent developments of last Sunday in the under-21 final, and they probably will start favourites. But can you be favourites with somebody like Pauline McCarthy in the opposition ranks?
I don't know.
It's dangerous.
With a player like that, just to say that she played in 78, there's an awful lot of people that were born in 78 that careers are well over. So to say that she was in the middle of her career and still going strong, it's a credit to her first and foremost, and to the club and everyone involved. But as PJ Carroll said, good luck to all the Limerick sides in action this weekend. We'll be hoping for good games, and that the weather won't be too much of a factor, which you've spoken about in great deal so far. Before we go on to Doon's under-21 win, you had said earlier that there's just some people saying about the midweek competitions that the 21s has pushed the midweek with people in colleges and stuff like that. And look, it is disappointing, but I suppose it's very difficult for people organising competitions to play them any other time of the week with the fixtures so condensed. I was wondering, what was your opinion on it?
Jack, I see both sides of this argument. Now, and people have contacted me about it and have mentioned it to me and been saying I should be shouting from rooftops about it and all that sort of thing, about players having to come from colleges as far away as Galway, as far away as Dublin, to play under 21 midweek games, and I buy into all of that, and I can see where people are coming from. But on the other side of the argument is, and somebody that I was speaking with in the last 2 days made a very, very good point to me, saying like that the part that Gaelic games play in our lives, we didn't fully realise it until they were taken from us during the pandemic, which puts it probably all into context. But I suppose precedent and everything goes out the window when we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I can see where Limerick County Board are coming from, and again I have to say they've done an excellent job in the way that they have organised the fixtures. But certainly I'd say going forward, and we're certainly into the era of living with this pandemic, and if all the early signs of the new strain, what the scientists are saying about the new strain, that it's not as serious as the previous one, or as current stroke previous one, it may become that little bit easier. But I would expect in 2022 that we would be reverting back to some level of normality, and this congestion and condensation that we've seen of competitions and the championships at the closing end of the year may not be the issue that it was this year. And because I can see we were getting a crash course of under-21 hurling and football. In normal circumstances, the under-21 championship would be played, starts in February, played right through March, and normally finished in April, so that you wouldn't have the problem of dual players at the back end of the year when the under-21 football would be getting a free run. So I would be expecting that we will be reverting back to something like that, or hoping that we will be reverting back to something like that. That's if the split season doesn't say that can't happen. But I think it should be up to counties to make their own decisions, and that's another point, Jack. And I'll come to it in a minute. We've the county convention coming up in the next few days, and you just wonder, why do we have it, or what's its relevance? But I'll reflect on that later. But yeah, I would be hoping, and I can see merit in both arguments. And I think, like the Limerick Championships, Jack, they've been a huge success. And they've been a huge success because, Jack, there was a plan put in place for running the championships. It was adhered to. It was ambitious, but it was adhered to. But secondly, Jack, and thirdly, they can go collectively together. You had buy-in from the clubs and buy-in from the players, which was absolutely huge, because you couldn't have pulled it off otherwise. But I would certainly like to see a return to some level of normality, because the level of congestion that we have had at this end of the year, it takes a toll on everybody, even on ourselves, trying to cover it, Jack.
Yeah. As you said, I can see that.
And a young fella like you and I'm having pity for as well,
I can see the argument from both sides, as you said. Personally, for me, I thought it was great having games during the week, something to go to. But there is probably, as we round towards Christmas, you'll probably be thinking, I actually wouldn't mind if there was no games on at this stage of the year, that there has been so much packed into such a tight period of time. But after last year, you'd give anything for these games. But I do think it's very difficult on players that aren't in Limerick to be getting home during the week. Now, it's fair enough, they probably all come home at the weekend to get their washing sorted and to have a nice dinner at home and stuff. So, but to come down during the week, then you can see it. And I suppose player welfare is the big thing. But for the year that was in it, I don't think it was too harmful to the players that they had to play during the week. And we might move on.
Yeah, that's the point I'm making, Jack. I agree with you totally. That's the point. That everything goes out the window when all convention goes out the window when you have something like a pandemic.
Yeah. Hopefully, as you said, it might be coming to an end that we'll just have to live with it, and that's certainly the way I've been approaching it. But on Doon, they got to play at the weekend. They played last Sunday against Napiershig 319 to 114, 3 in a row for Doon. And I was talking during the week, their time in senior has to be coming, Matt. And there's one man in particular that is leading the charge, and that's Adam English. And we'll talk about him in a minute. But outside of Adam, who I imagine we're going to see with the senior team next year, looking through their panel now, Chris Thomas, Cormac Ryan, Chris Berkery, Keena Donovan, Bob Purcell, Eddie Stokes, Tomas Lynch, who was the goalie for that minor team, was at wing forward, and Jack Ryan got a double, was joint captain of the team. Like, there's some team for under 21s. A lot of them will have won 3 in a row. An awful lot of them have already played for Doon. And on the grand scheme of things, Jack Ryan even mentioned it in his post-match interview with John, that like the goal is a senior title, and they can't be too far away from it, Matt.
They cannot, and I spoke with Paddy Coleman after, who has managed them for the last 6 or 7 years and has done a phenomenal job, and including the 3 in a row. It was the first thing he said to me, if we could only convert it into a senior title, So, like, certainly, the building blocks are being put in place, Jack, because the like of these players are going to catch up in their playing careers with the Richie Englishes, with the Dara O'Donovans, with the Pat Ryans, with the Barry Murphys of this world. So, like, it has to be only around the corner. Owen Mack, another one of them. It has to be around the corner before they make the breakthrough. Now, we've been saying this for a while, but they're certainly, from what we saw last Sunday, the manner in which they won the game, and finished the game in particular, like, it was hugely impressive. And you mentioned players there, again, and you in particular have mentioned it a number of times during the year, how impressed you were with Chris Thomas, and I agree with you. And I think he added to his growing reputation last week. Now, he normally plays cornerback or an odd time wing back, but he was playing full back. and was quite solid. You'd Cormac Ryan at centre back was huge. Got a couple of points. Keane O'Donovan and Chris Berkeley at midfield, very, very, very strong. And you had Eddie Stokes centre forward. Now Eddie played centre field for quite a bit in the senior championship this year. You had Bob Purcell, who looked very, very, very sharp. You had Jack Ryan, as you said, got a couple of goals. Played senior this year. I have one name admission. Go
on, we'll talk about him. Adam English, 111.
111, 1-6 from Clay. Jack, you can't argue with it. All I can say, Jack, is it was a privilege to be in the Gaelic grounds last Sunday to see Adam English playing hurling.
Yeah, and you don't want, as I said this loads of times, you don't want to hype up the man too much. He's only 18 years of age. You said it to me, and before in these another 3 years at this grade, he could easily pick up 4 or 5 titles in that time, the way Doon are going. But he's just an incredible talent. And
absolutely an incredible talent. And we did mention during the year, and I was reminded twice on Sunday by people from Doon. One of them added the rider that when we mentioned during the year, I made the remark that thank God that Adam English was a Limerick man. They reminded me of it, and one of them added the rider that thank God he was a Doon man as well.
Yeah, so. It's very, very handy for Doon, but like that they're going to win a county title sooner rather than later. That is just going to happen. I suppose they'll just be getting over the line because they've got a couple of finals there consistently in semi-finals. They have players like that coming through, and Adam English could be that difference maker, that player that takes them over the line. Now we saw him this year. He transitioned very well into the senior ranks, but there's more around. All of those players you mentioned that played in senior ranks.
Absolutely, well. And of course, his initial years now in first 1 or 2 years at senior level, like he will be finding his feet, although he found them very well this year. But he was very, very, very closely policed after his performance in the opening round this year. He was very, very closely marked. Space was at a premium for Adam English, but like what I saw about him last week was the amount of area he covers. He's extremely difficult to mark. If you allocate a man marker to him, by God, his tongue will be outside his head before in half time, nearly trying to get around after him, or if you kind of do a sort of a zonal marking on him. I don't know. Look, but he has a skill suite, Jack, that's only second to Cian Lynch, and that's saying it all.
Yeah, I think he's very like Tom Morrissey, the yellow helmet, the wing forward, the work rate, the shooting is the main thing. I just think he's so accurate, like Tom, and hopefully they'll be able to play together next year. We'll see Limerick as early as January. It might be a bit too soon. There's no harm giving another few years with the underage team, but we will see him in John Kiley's plans sooner rather than later. And as I said, we'll probably see Doon lifting the Daily Cup sooner rather than later. You mentioned the convention there in passing a few minutes ago. You wanted to talk more about that.
Jack, what has been worrying me for some time and for considerable time, I've been around this game a long time, Jack, and I'm worried about conventions. I'm worried about, why have them at all? Why have them at all? Because like the last couple of conventions, Limerick County conventions, I don't think there was any motions. I'm around long enough to remember spending long, arduous hours inside in Sexton Street at county conventions when there'd be anything from up to 40 or 50 motions on conventions, on the convention clause, dealing with all sorts of things from championships, structures, various things, all which was, Jack, mind you, in keeping with the charter of the association and on the founding principles of the association, that it would be from subsidiarity, from the bottom up. But now what have we got? Like, we've got a situation where it appears to me that we've been handed down diktats. Where is the role of the club? We've been handed down diktats. Now, there's a committee put in place to decide the future of the football championship. That was decided, Jack. That was rejected. And what are we doing now? Are we going down the same road as the politicians? When the politicians conducted referenda on Europe, if they didn't like the result, what would they do? Bring it back again and hope and get a different result. But everything is being handed down from the top. Where is the role of the club now in the formulation of policy? There are 3 officers now, Jack. 3 officers of county boards who are no longer elected. They're appointed, mind you, with the behest and the blessing of headquarters. Where is the democracy? All right, there can be an argument made, Jack. You appeared half stunned.
Yeah.
But this is facts.
Yeah.
There's an argument maybe for appointing a secretary because there's a huge workload. But we're gradually eroding. We're gradually eroding the say that clubs have. Children's officer, no longer elected. Development officer, no longer elected. Appointed. What's going to be next? Do the clubs realise what's happening? Their say, their input is being eroded. I remember conventions when every possible position, nearly, for many years were contested. And you had a much healthier association. We've won contest. Lo and behold, we've won contest at this year's convention because Jim Enright's 5 years is up and there's a vacancy. We have a convention. We have a contest. Like where is all this going to stop? I think it's time that the clubs mobilise and reclaim back our association from bureaucrats. It's gone too far, Jack.
But it's important you say that because it's a community organisation. At the end of the day, it's kind of a family, and it starts with the clubs and it ends with the clubs. Every single announcement from retirement, you'll hear that sentiment. So hopefully.
But Jack, we were a community organisation when with the outbreak of the pandemic, because for the clubs that were mobilised and did an excellent job. Now the GAA did an excellent job and worked to the forefront in the response to the pandemic. But I don't want to see the role of the club further eroded. I want it to stop. I want it to be reversed. Like these high-powered committees in such and such a one out of such and such an organisation, such and such a one with letters A, B, and C and D after his name and all this sort of thing, deciding policy. GAA was never intended like that. The men that sat down in Thurles in 1884 never foresaw that. And like I can maybe be accused of living in the dark ages, but we had a far healthier organisation, in my view, and far greater input into the running of the association when we had healthy contests, healthy conventions, when people had a say. Like the chain of command was you brought your motion to your divisional board, it went from there to the county board, it went there from to provincial, and it went from there to Congress. All gone. What say has the ordinary fella that sits in the corner at a club AGM? None. What say has his club? None. Has to stop, Jack.
Yeah, it's important to highlight issues like this because it will affect everyone in the grand scheme of things, and competition is always good if you want people competing for these places, because you don't want people elected with no opposition because you don't know what they're about then. But I suppose it's good just to start spreading the word to people that mightn't be aware of this. And as you said, hopefully the clubs will have more say because they deserve to have their say. But we might move on before we finish.
I'm annoyed today, Jack. Excuse me for being annoyed. I'm annoyed over Nicky Quaid, so everybody's on the firing line. Yeah,
I might just finish with a nice topic if you don't mind. And I think I'll just check now that you're still in thinking that Cian Lynch is hurler of the year and he'll be awarded that tonight.
Yeah, I think he will. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think he will, and there can be compelling cases for the reasons that we said that can be made for Sean Finn and for Kyle Hayes, and I think Cian Lynch will be nominated Hurler of the Year, and he's nominated for Sportsperson of the Year as well.
Yeah, I just saw that Sportsperson award announced a while ago. But to be fair to Kyle and Sean Finn, probably any other year they would have been very worthy Hurler of the Years, and they are this year as well. But Cian Lynch is just on a different planet at the moment. But
I just look back on the 2 goals that Garrod Hegarty got in the All-Ireland final at crucial stages, and Cian Lynch's input into both of them, Jack, was
outside the 6 points he scored in the final as well.
Different planet, Jack.
Yeah, and just before we finish, I was just putting together like a piece, and all these Limerick players have won because it's staggering, but. This was Cian Lynch's lot so far for the 25-year-old, and that's not counting the Hurler of the Year award he'll win tonight. So you've 3 All-Irelands, 3 Munsters, 2 National Leagues, 2 Under-21 All-Irelands, 2 Munster Under-21 All-Irelands, 2 Munster Minors, 2020 Munster Hurler of the Year, 2 Limerick Championships with Patrick Swell, 2 Fitzgibbon Cups with Mary I. He'll be there again this year within UIG, 2 Hartley Cups. I think he won his first one when he was maybe 14 or 15, third year. He's 3 times All-Star now, 2 times Under-21 All-Star. He's Hurler of the Year in 18. He'll be Hurler of the Year again in 2021. And 2021 All-Ireland Final Man of the Match. For what a collection for a fella who's probably only halfway through his career.
He's only starting, Jack.
Have you ever seen the likes of him before?
No. And look, there's people arguing with me as late as a week ago for the remark that I passed that he's the best hurler of all time, and I stand 4 square behind it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to imagine that there was a player as talented as him first and foremost, and he makes good use of that talent. Leading Limerick, obviously, the 3 All-Irelands. But look, if Kyle Hayes or Sean Finn are the man standing with the Hurler of the Year award today, we won't begrudge them.
No, certainly not. We certainly won't.
But it just seems like
they'd be worthy winners. But I have a sense that it's going to be Cian Lynch.
Yeah, it just looks like it's going to be Cian Lynch, but it just a sign of the times, Matt. I suppose in 2018, Cian Lynch was the first Limerick man to win the current Hurler of the Year award. Now I know Eamon Grimes won the 73, the Texco award, but that's since gone. So Cian Lynch was technically Limerick's second Hurler of the Year, the first in the current format, and we had 6 All-Stars that year. And we'll say before that we maybe had 3 in the previous 6 or 7 years, or previous 10 years probably. And
yeah, absolutely. When we got an All-Star, we thought we were in heaven.
Yeah, like I think Mark Foley got one in 2001, then you had Andrew O'Shaughnessy, Brian Murray, and Ollie Moran in 2007, and then Richard McCarthy 13, and Shane Sicky and Shane Dowling in 14. So that was maybe 6 in the space of 12, 13 years. Then we actually got 6 in 2018, and now we've doubled that.
And we were inclined to blow about it that we had 6, and now we've doubled it, and we're not satisfied.
Yeah,
we've come a long way, Jack.
Bredo Dwyer says Cian Lynch is better than Shefflin. I don't know about that. I still think King Henry is the best of all time, but Cian Lynch is still halfway through his career, so he'll probably
Jack. Thanks be to God you're saying it at the end of the podcast, because I'd be desperate and I'd arguing with you about that.
Yeah,
I stand over Cian Lynch.
Yeah, we'll see. He's only halfway through his career, so we'll see how that goes. But three Munster Hurling Championship games to look forward to this weekend: Kilmallock, Mungret St. Paul's, and Caherline all in action. We have that Junior B Camogie final between St. Ailbe's and Doon, and we also have Monagea in the Munster Ladies Intermediate Football final against Castleisland Desmonds on Saturday. So the best of luck to all those teams. Again, many thanks to you, Matt. Next week we'll be looking forward to Newcastle and the Nire. We might get around to doing that Senior Football Championship Team of the Year. I haven't forgot about that. But again, a huge thank you to everyone for tuning in, and we'll be in touch soon. So thank you, Matt.
You're welcome, Jack.
The impression again we get out with what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well, Sean Buckley to do do that to Tomas O'Shea. He deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word court today. No more about it. They made all the run, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there